Over 80% of viewers are unsubscribed, so make sure to hit that button. It's hard to believe nowadays that at one point in the industry, the era of quad jets were well and truly alive, with every single manufacturer exploring ways to end the dominance at Boeing that they were seeing with their 747 series. Whether it be with the A380 that was being studied at the time as the A3XX, to the McDonnell Douglas MD-12 with the latter not releasing. These manufacturers were finding ways to better compete and to end Boeing's firm grip. But see, while all these competitors were finding ways to beat Boeing, the American plane maker had ideas itself. Ideas to generally enhance its portfolio and grip on the quad engine sector, and for long-haul travel too. Unfortunately for Boeing, or maybe fortunately, however you choose to look at it, many of their studies never eventuated to anything, and in the end, the only thing they would decide to do is move forward with the 747-8 as a means to continue the 747 program for those that desired it. And for the A380 as well, we know how those aircraft types panned out, it must be said, with at that point the majority of customers already moving away from such planes. What the age of the quad engine does give us is many fascinating concepts. Today's focus is a more in-depth look at the 747X, labelled as the A380 rival or A380 killer. Even before the birth of the 777X, Boeing were exploring actually utilising X at the end of their aircraft programs to identify them as an upgrade. If the 747X had progressed, what would it entail? Well, if Boeing had advanced with the upgraded aircraft, it would definitely need to possess qualities that would see carriers want to invest in it. Initial discussions identified a wing refinement that would see technology utilised on the 777 at the time heavily applied to the 747X. However, before this, and before we only really had two variants as part of the 747X series, there were proposed variants that went from the -500X all the way up to the -700X. Consider these plans really to create a new line for the 747 series. And if this all had progressed, it would have been quite the upgrade, but there are a lot of concerns already present, as I will definitely get into. After much deliberation, Boeing would look towards refining the designs on its 747X by removing these variants initially speculated and rumoured to align with what they believed to be the way forward. It determined that a 747X, and therefore an advanced 747X stretch, would be the best means to move ahead. The two would equally serve a purpose per Boeing and also be an upgrade on existing planes with some of that new technology implemented. As the name would suggest, the stretch version would increase the aircraft's overall length. In turn, this raises passenger capacity. The 747X stretch is where Boeing saw the potential as well, with multiple variations that obviously wouldn't progress though. Still, Boeing was thinking long-term even now, with a heavy emphasis on utilising the plane for freighter purposes. The stretch could have sat 500 passengers based on specifications, which was an increase on the base 747X, more looking at 430. These specifications, it must be said, did pose a lot of intrigue and present a lot of discussion too. In an age where we didn't necessarily have social media networks and I wasn't even alive, discussion you'd imagine was certainly more limited to forums, events and such. However, unsurprisingly, there were red flags for the 747X program that maybe some have highlighted would really be present also with the 747-8 that we know eventually went on to launch. Primarily, one of the biggest concerns was related to interest. Now, while this was just one concern, it was a very important one, as these manufacturers were already beginning to see a massive shift in the desires laid out by companies right around the world. Was there a need for high-capacity jets at specific carriers? You absolutely can say yes to that. But it was dwindling at this point, and while Boeing didn't progress with the 747X in the end, it would eventually launch, as mentioned, the 747-8. Was this plane a success? Well, many people would argue that it suffered a similar fate to the A380 and maybe even the A340. most had moved on to not necessarily bigger, but better aircraft types. Your twin-engined, fuel-efficient and eco-friendly types produced at Airbus and Boeing. So it wasn't like they were, say, saying goodbye to the aircraft manufacturer just because they went ahead and launched a new quad-engine plane, but definitely they were looking at better alternatives for them moving ahead. It wasn't though just the interest that ultimately did play a part in the demise of the 747X though. It was definitely the costs associated with going ahead and building this plane, which during those early stages were beginning to balloon out. And if Boeing did want to move ahead at the time, there would be substantial risks for their finances associated. Pair that with a lack of demand and a lack of interest, well then, red flags will start to arrive. I think very generally, it is why you see companies not launching clean sheets every second. And additionally, it doesn't mean that re-engineering or simple design tweaks to an existing platform are cheap either. Still though, they definitely provide a more cost-efficient means to upgrade an aircraft for customers that may require it. And we've seen that all around the globe, whether it be with narrow bodies or wide bodies, and it has certainly been successful. The 747X was ultimately one of the many aircraft types studied by Boeing to continue their long-haul dominance, and simply extend the life of the 747. It was pitted as an answer to the A3XX, which would ultimately turn into the A380, but see, the 747X would face many negatives that would really derail any progress on the variant and force Boeing to rethink its commercial aircraft outlook. While the 747 would still progress with the eventual release of the 747-8, many will continue to ponder the what-ifs if, say, Boeing were to go ahead with the 747X. I do apologize if there's any background noise towards the end of this video. There is some vacuuming going on at the place I reside, so hopefully it is not too impactful on the recording. Now it is over to you. I want you to utilize the comments down below to discuss the 747X and those two proposed variants, whether it be the base 747X or the 747X stretch. Do you believe Boeing made the right call with not progressing with these, and then going ahead and launching the 747-8 later down the line? As always, I can't thank you enough for the continued support you do show here on the channel. If this so happens to be your first time passing through, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button too. And if you'd like to suggest future content to be seen here, there is a form down below in the comments where you're more than welcome to submit as many video ideas as you want, and I'll do my very best to at some point turn them into videos here on the channel. Thanks a lot for watching, take care and be safe, stay tuned for the next analysis video that will be going live in the coming days.